everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Hawk Blogger Mornings. I am Brian Nemhauser, and this is kind of a not quite an emergency podcast edition, but it's a bonus episode. We'll call it a bonus episode of Hawk Blogger Mornings as the Seahawks have made a move. They have made a move that honestly, when I first heard about it, I was like, okay, good, whatever. They added Marquez Valdes-Scantling, 30-year-old veteran wide receiver, been kind of a journeyman around the league. Cheap contracts, I think I could double check this. I should have had this ready for you. I think it's like $5 million, like nothing big, right? And so I was like, you know, I approve of this signing. I think this is the right level of signing that they should be making. I think that it is, the right price that they should be paying. They should not go high and they should not commit big dollars to, if it's Stephon Diggs or Amari Cooper, or someone who's going to ask for a lot of years or a lot of money, don't do it. But then I was like, all right, well, I started looking into him a little bit more and played for the Saints last year. He actually played for the Bills to start, and then he was released by the Bills, and he was signed by the Saints. I was like, okay, well, that's interesting. And then I dug a little deeper, and he was signed by the Saints after they lost Rashid Shaheed, who was their dynamic, deep threat receiver who got injured last year, and Marquez Valdes-Scantling, or MVS, as I think he goes by at times, was their replacement, was kind of their answer for Rashid Shaheed going down. And if you listen to this show enough, you know that I've brought up Rashid Shaheed a number of times as the kind of receiver that I think the Seahawks should be adding to complement Jackson Smith-Njigba. Somebody who can stretch the field, somebody who can be a big play guy. Let JSN be the 150 target guy, and then add the big punch, deep shot kind of guy. And so I was like, all right, that's cool. And then I was looking at his numbers, and I was like, this is kind of weird. Like, he had 4 touchdowns, and he only started 8 games for the Saints. That's pretty good. And I kept looking because this is what I do. When I find something interesting, especially if it's related to the Seahawks, I keep going. So he had, as I said, 4 touchdowns in just 8 starts last year for the Saints. Well, the most touchdowns he's ever had in his career in a single season is 6. And that was in 16 games for the Packers, the team that drafted him. And that was back in 2020. So I'm like, something seemed to be working between Marquez Valdes-Scantling, and I'm going to have to get that name down because I'm probably going to I'm going to mess it up at some point. But he seems to be working well with Klint Kubiak's offense. I thought, you know what? Who needs an excuse to spend a little time getting to know the Klint Kubiak offense? Who needs an excuse to spend some time watching some film? So I decided to fire up some All-22 and watch some of his plays in the Klint Kubiak offense. And sure enough, there's some plays worth watching. There are some plays worth watching. So I decided we would take a look at that. Going to do that in just a moment, and really appreciate everyone who's on, who wants to give a show a like, click subscribe. I really appreciate it when you take the time to do that. We're nearing 16,000 subscribers already, which is great. The other thing that I want to touch on, help me remember if I forget, but I want to touch on some Seahawks news as well. Bob Condata reported some things that I think are pretty important related to the offensive line. But since this show is centered around Marquez Valdes-Scantling, we're going to start there. Then we're going to talk offensive line news. We'll talk about some of the other news that's come out. But goodness here. I think there's some goodness coming here for the Seahawks. So you guys ready to watch a little film? Let's watch a little film together. And you tell me, I'm not here to convince you anything. I'm just going to show you what I found, and you can have your own perspective on implications for this. You're probably going to hear my dog barking in the background. Hopefully you don't hear Finn, but there's someone at the door. He gets very angry when there's someone at the door. So this first play, you're going to see is you're going to see like big play after big play for MVS. And again, keep in mind, this is the Klint Kubiak offense, who is now your play caller for the Seahawks. Okay. So we're going to watch this through once. All right. And I want to call out a couple of things here. I'm going to get back to this. All right. So Marquez Valdes-Scantling's here. I think Derek Carr is the quarterback for this particular time period. You're going to see some plays where Spencer Rattler is, but you're going to see motion. What else are you going to see? You're going to see, attached tight end here. You're going to see a tight formation. This is a pretty narrow formation in general. It's not spread out, pretty tight formation. And you're going to see a little bit of a play action misdirection, which you're going to see in a few of these plays. But this is a bit of a coverage bust by the Browns, so it's not like this is an amazing play. But you get kind of this orbit motion here, fake handoff to the receiver. They're blocking it down like this absolutely could be a running play, right? It could feel like a running play. And if you look at the eyes of all of the second level defenders. Look at the safety's eyes. All of them are here, right? They're all there. And what's Klint Kubiak got Marquez Valdes-Scantling doing? He's got him going in the opposite direction. This is what misdirection is, folks. This is the kind of offense I personally really appreciate because it's just harder for defenders. You hear about coaches talking about how good are our linebackers' eyes. That's this. And what you're going to see is it's going to vacate a big space right here. So let's go back and play this again. So you see him right now. There's nobody there. Like, there is nobody around. Now, I think I would call this a coverage bust, probably by this guy here who's like, oh no, what have I done? Maybe here. It depends. I don't know what coverage they're in, so I'm not going to try to guess. But you have Derek Carr booting out of this, essentially. Again, like kind of a role play. And here is MVS just sitting there wide open. How nice would it be if you didn't have to have elite receivers? You just had a play call that actually had people wide open. That'd be nice. Well, so easy throw. And then you see the speed. You see the speed for Marquez Valdes-Scantling. This guy ran a 4.3740. 4.3740 back when he came out. So I'll show you that one more time. We got a lot of plays to go through, but nice designed rollout. And then you just see him run away. Look at the distance he's getting from those guys. And he takes it all the way to the house. 71 yards. Not bad. Not bad. So that's play number one. If you thought 71 yards sounded nice, how about 67? Let's see what this play looks like, all right? So we're going to come here and we're going to watch this closely. I'll kind of show you off the jump. Again, play action. And in this case, MVS is on a deep route. So I think he is, well, I should have checked on this one. I lost track which one this one was. We'll find out in a second. I think he's at the top of your screen. Yeah, he was at the top of your screen. All right, so let's watch that again. All right, so MVS is up here, cut off a little bit. And again, you've got motion at the snap, motion at the snap. It's not pre-snap, just like for, finding out if they're in zone or man. It's like to actually affect the potential of where this ball's going. Single back. Really, was this a two receiver set? Yeah, this is a tight end. I believe this is probably Juwan Johnson in motion. So this is a 12 personnel, one back, two tight ends, two receivers situation. All right. Go in motion at the snap. Now he's set. So that was more of a motion there. There's the play action. And you've got MVS right here. Inside leverage on the corner, right? Corner's outside of him. Corner's playing outside leverage. The receiver's inside. And you've got the safety here. So you've got MVS running up this seam. And this is where his speed comes into play. You see Derek Carr is looking for him all the way. And this safety here, he bites. He thinks that Carr is coming here. But Carr says, nah, we're going deep. We're going deep. This guy's got a step. I'm going to trust MVS to make that play. And a hell of a throw. And he does separate. Goes all the way down to the 5-yard line. So let's watch that one more time. Watch MVS at the top of your screen. Play action. Deep. Safety bites. Perfect ball. And MVS, yards after the catch too. Not diving to the ground. You know, he's getting everything there is out of that play. That's 67 yards. Okay? That wasn't even a touchdown. Next play. This is another touchdown and another big play. And we'll kind of watch the beginning of this again. Then we'll rewind. So what you've got here is a bunch at the top, right? And you've got a single receiver split out here. So 3-by-1. You've got a tight end right here. So this is no back set, right? This is a 4-receiver set with 1 tight end. And this is MVS right here, right at the inside of the bunch. And what you're going to see him do is kind of drag. Oops, that's not what I meant to do. Drag across this formation. And one of the reasons this is cool, ends up being a really big play, which is great. But he's not just a straight line guy. A lot of the things he did for the Saints was crossing routes, right? That's part of this offense. Backside digs, things like that. I have some of those, I think, in here, but it's just worth noting he's not a straight line speed only guy. All right, so here comes. Now this was a nice subtle move here. I want to rewind this and show you this. So watch what happens here with this. I think that's a safety. Let's see. Is that a safety? Let's watch again. Yeah, it's a safety. Watch how MVS, he's already into his route. Watch the move he puts on him to get him off balance and then be able to get to this outside, which is where he wants to go to begin with. Watch this. In, out. Let's watch that move again because it's really subtle. Okay? Yeah, he's 30 years old. Yeah, he's been on 75 teams. But he also was some of the teams he's been on most recently, the Buffalo Bills, the Kansas City Chiefs. Those are pretty good teams. So these plays to me are showing he's still got something left, and he certainly is able to get deep, which is, I think, nice. We are getting news. We are getting news right now. So let me come back to some MVS stuff. This is probably the least surprising addition for the Seahawks. The Seahawks are signing Demarcus Lawrence. And I've been talking about this for a while, that this was an option for the Seahawks. So this is why you go live right now, right? So let me talk about this on Twitter real quick. But the connection here is obvious. Adding Dirty last year recruited Jonathan Hankins to come to Seattle. Adding Dirty, the defensive coordinator, who people seem to forget because Mike McDonald is credited, as he should be, with the defense. He's your defensive coordinator. He helped recruit he helped recruit Jonathan Hankins last year when he was the defensive line coach for the Cowboys and then came up to Seattle. So for me, it seemed like an interesting opportunity for them to add a really good player in Demarcus Lawrence to their defensive line. They certainly have the cap space for it now. And the Cowboys didn't look like they were going to bring him back. So let's take a look at a little bit of what Demarcus Lawrence brings to the table. And let's also talk about the fact that this has some potential implication for Uchenna Nwosu. Not sure, but it could. So Demarcus Lawrence, I'm going to look at a couple different numbers for him. But if we look, he's an edge player. And as I said, he's a little bit on the older side. Okay. So if I look through here, where is he listed? Lawrence. They have him as a different. Maybe they don't have him as an edge player. Maybe they consider him interior. Let's see. Demarcus Lawrence. That's Dexter Lawrence. That's definitely not right. Where is Demarcus Lawrence? Okay, Demarcus Lawrence, part of the issue is he only played 167 snaps last year. He is 6'3", 265 pounds. He's essentially 33 years old. He's gonna be 33 April 2nd. Okay, day after April's Fool's Day. But so last year's numbers are not going to be impressive. Now I will say in just 167 snaps, he did have 3 sacks, which is not bad. But this used to be a guy that was known for his pass rush. He's become a guy that's really known for his run defense. In 2023, let's go back 1 year, the last year he played a full season. In 2023, let's go to regular season only. And again, let's go to edge and look at this. Of every player in the NFL that played edge 2 years ago, 2023, his last full season, the number one run defender in the NFL, according to PFF, on the edge was Max Crosby, 92.7 grade. Now remember, 90 and above is all pro. Like that is elite of elite. There were only 3 edge defenders in the entire NFL in 2023 that received a 90 or above grade in run defense as an edge player. Max Crosby, 92.7. Demarcus Lawrence, 92.4. Khalil Mack, 90.8. Like, that's meaningful. That's meaningful. And by the way, that wasn't the only time he's done it. In 2021, he had a 92.5 grade against the run. And he has a number of other years that are above 80. 2019, 83.2. 2018, 81.7. 2017, 80.6. 2014, 81.0. So he's been a elite run defender in terms of setting the edge. And if you remember the Seahawks games against him 2 years ago, that Thursday night game, he was a big part of how the Cowboys won that game that I think the Seahawks should have won. I will say that in 2023, which again is just 2 years ago, he wasn't shabby as a pass rusher either. There were let's see, I want to make sure I've got this right because I'm seeing different numbers in different places. Yeah, so he had a decent year as a pass rusher as well. Not a lot of sacks, but he had 48 pressures. And his pass rush grade was 19th in the NFL amongst edge rushers that year. He was right around Joey Bosa. He had the same grade as Joey Bosa. Right around the same as Danielle Hunter. So and actually a little bit above Boye Mafe. The Seahawks haven't had a edge rusher that had a pass rush grade over 80 in I don't know how long. It's been a while, for a season, I would say. So this is not, wouldn't put the celebration out there that Demarcus Lawrence is everything he used to be. But it is a situation where this is a very good player. Aden Dirty knows him very well. And now he's a Seahawk. And the Seahawks have some extra cap to spend. So this is not a bad place to do it. So I'm looking to get a little bit more information about his injury. So yes, that's what I thought. He had a Liz Frank injury. Now, Liz Frank injury, for those that remember, I think, who's the first person I remember the Seahawks having this? I thought like Joey Galloway had this injury, but I don't think that's right. Maybe Chris Warren. Somebody did back in the olden days. And it is in like the arch of your foot. And I think it can be a relatively serious thing, but people do come back from it. Initially, they thought he would need 4 to 8 weeks to recover. And then I think what happened is the season just got lost. Like the Cowboys were done. And didn't work out for them to bring him back. They just decided to give him the rest of the season off. Well, it's worth noting that Aden Dirty wasn't the only person who was recruiting Demarcus Lawrence. The other team that was recruiting him outside of Dallas was his old defensive coordinator, Dan Quinn. The Washington Commanders were linked to Demarcus Lawrence and trying to make a move to get him. The expectation was he was going to be one of the guys that had a lot of teams looking to add him. And as I'm kind of looking through some of the information here, this is a guy that, Chad Brown. Thank you. I see someone in chat. Chad Brown was the guy with Liz Frank. Thank you. Appreciate you. I love that there's someone as old as me, or maybe older, who knows, in chat. So, this is a pretty good. I think it's a pretty good signing for the Seahawks. And the money's starting to come out. So what we're seeing now is that he is signed. I think it's a 2-year, $18 million deal. No, here's what it is. It is 3 years with a maximum of $42 million with $18 million guaranteed. So that's where I think people are getting the 2-year, $18 million, because that's what I've told you. I look at the guaranteed money. I take 1 year off the full length of the deal, and I divide the guaranteed money by the length. So that gets 18 million divided by 2, like 9 to 10 million a year, depending on what incentives. Now, the reason there's such a huge disparity here is that he's 33 years old and he's coming off an injury. So the Seahawks almost always in this situation will do incentive-driven deals or performance escalator deals where the base salary, the base value is relatively low. And so they're protected. If the player does not end up being healthy and does not play a lot of snaps and does not contribute a lot, then the Seahawks aren't really hurt. But if they play the way they normally play, the player can make a lot of money, and the Seahawks are happy to pay them because, why wouldn't you want to add a good player? So again, $42 million $42 million over the life of the contract for 3 years. That would take him to 36. I doubt that's going to be how long he's with us, but it works out to quote 14 million a year. I don't think it's going to be that much. I do think it's a little interesting, and I wonder how some people in the room feel about it's more than Ernest Jones got by quite a bit, and it's more than Jaron Reed got by quite a bit. It's the market. I mean, it was a competitive situation. So the nice thing as well here is that this allows the Seahawks to enter the draft really not worrying about edge. Like, I would like them to get an edge, that had upside, but I don't think you're going to be looking at Mike Green. I mean, Shamar Stewart, if he was there, I think you'd still have to think about it, but you're in a pretty good spot. And I do wonder a bit with Uchenna Nwosu if this means he might not be with the team, but I'm not sure about that. And the reason is I was talking about this with Derek and Jeff and some other folks this morning that you did have Draymond Jones playing edge last year quite a bit. You had a little bit of Roy Robertson Harris playing some edge, and it probably worked out to maybe 20 or 30 snaps a game that you have to fill, even when Nwosu was back. Like, that's when Uchenna Nwosu came out back, Roy Robertson Harris basically went down to about 10 snaps a game. And if you didn't remember, if you haven't heard, Roy Robertson Harris signed with the Giants. So he's gone. So now you've got some of those snaps. You've got an older player. You don't need him to be like the high snap guy. You have a pretty good rotation. Dexter Lawrence, Uchenna Nwosu, Derek Hall, Boye Mafe. You've got Boye Mafe and Derek Hall learning from Nwosu and Dexter Lawrence. I think that's pretty nice. And you've got Adam Dirty, who's got familiarity with Dexter Lawrence, which is also pretty nice. And the Seahawks, we've been asking, like, what are you going to spend this money on? That was kind of the question I asked this morning, and I talked about, like, Dexter Lawrence would be a name. That's probably the biggest name that would make some sense to spend the money on. So you still need a nose tackle. That is something you have not yet addressed, but pretty nice addition here, and I think worth getting excited about. Some other news coming out. So safety DeAnthony Bell is slated for a visit with the Seahawks. What is it? I don't know DeAnthony Bell. Got to be honest. Let me take a quick look. So DeAnthony Bell was not tendered he's a safety from the Browns and was not tendered as a restricted free agent. He spent the last 3 seasons in Cleveland and appeared in 50 regular season games, most of his time coming on special teams, but he also made 7 defensive starts, 61 tackles, 2 interceptions, 4 passes defense, and a forced fumble over the course of his career. So DeAnthony Bell also reported to be slated to make a visit with the Seahawks. So more news there. I'm checking chat because Derek's pretty excited, I think. I think this is also a good point that I just saw in there that's worth mentioning is I think this makes the Trey Hendrickson move that some people have been hoping for pretty unlikely. I think it was already unlikely, but I doubt you're going to add another 30-year-old pass rusher and pay him a bunch of money. So I think this is probably the end of the line for edge rush additions, at least through free agency or through the veteran edge rush guys. Let's see. So I'm a little bummed because I might have to change my thumbnail for this episode again. I really liked the thumbnail I made for this episode. So maybe I'll keep it. Maybe I'll just add Demarcus Lawrence to that as well. He kind of qualifies as fast. Sure, why not? So great breaking news there. I think a big addition there for the Seahawks. And honestly, this has been a pretty active Wednesday for them. First official day of free agency, and the Marquez Valdes-Scantling move, as I was talking about, I think is a sneaky good move. We're going to go watch some more film here in a second. The Demarcus Lawrence addition, if he's healthy, if he's close, if he's like 80%, 85% of what he was, he's arguably your best edge. Like, he's at least in the conversation for that. So never hurts to add more edge rush. Never hurts to add another good run defender. I think that's a real tone setter and a guy that can help really kind of set the attitude for the defense. I got this from Matt McManus that my thumbnail this morning for the stream was spectacular. Well, thank you. I was very proud of that. A little subtle, like, design of having the text behind the tree and a little bit behind the horizon. Pretty proud of the font selection. There are some benefits to having worked 24 years at Adobe and learning from a lot of designers over the years. I'm not a designer, nor do I claim to have any talent to be, but I've learned a few things. The other thing I'd say that someone just said, did I say Demarcus Lawrence in Seattle? Yes, I did. He signed with the Seahawks. He is a Seahawk. So yes, he's coming to Seattle. And the other thing that has been at least mentioned, Daniel Jeremiah talking about Cooper Kupp said Seattle would make a lot of sense. Daniel Jeremiah doesn't generally just throw things against the wall. He might have heard something. We've talked about that I do think that would make some sense. I do think he fits this offense. He is a good, solid blocker. He's from Washington, or went to school here. And it just depends on the money. But I think that that's possible. I was going to do this at the end, but I'll do this now, and then I'll get back to film here in a second. The other thing that came out that I think is pretty important, Bob Condata reported, and let me read his exact tweet so I don't mess it up. Oh man, we got news, bad news. Kevin Zeitler has signed with the Tennessee Titans on a 1-year, $9 million deal. So the dream is dead. That is unfortunate. And the fact of the matter is that means that he was not just going to sign with a contender, because the Titans are anything but. Maybe he'd only sign in the middle of the country. I don't know. That's a bummer. That is a bummer. I certainly would have paid way more than $9 million to have Kevin Zeitler on the team, but that is no longer an option. But this does answer some questions. Let's go ahead and talk about what Bob Condata reported this morning. And I believe that this is going to clear some things up. All right. So Bob Condata reported a few hours ago, my understanding of the Seahawks and Will Fries is that Seattle wanted to get him to come in and take a physical. Given his injury and how big the money is, let me read that again. My understanding of the Seahawks and Will Fries is that Seattle wanted to get him to come in and take a physical, given his injury and how big the money is. That couldn't happen until Wednesday. Fries didn't want to wait. That was the primary issue, not years or dollars. Fries didn't want to wait to take a physical. That was the primary issue, not years or dollars. Okay? He then goes on to tweet, and I'm not sure I'd hold my breath that Seattle gets Mekhi Becton or Tevin Jenkins. Seattle will likely add to the offensive line, but may not be one of those two. I've heard similar things, and I would point out that John Benton has experience with Mekhi Becton. And I think it's worth just noting that the Seahawks, like, he may know whether Mekhi Becton is a fit for what he's going to do. And there's enough things I've heard on this front that I just think Becton's not even on the radar. Okay, so it's not that they don't want to spend or anything like that. He's not. I don't think that's the guy that they want to bring in, and I don't think that's the guy that they think is a fit for what they're doing. Tevin Jenkins, I've heard more confirmation on what I was kind of theorizing this morning. Now, this is just rumor. This is not an official report, but this is digging up some more information. People that know kind of what's going on around the league is that Tevin Jenkins, I told you, he's been a good player, but he has been injured quite a bit. But they haven't been like serious injuries. Like, he's not tearing ligaments or breaking bones. And so I said this morning that one of the things that can mean is teams start to question a little bit about toughness and how much you love the game and whether you're going to play through injury. And I've heard more rumblings along those lines with Tevin Jenkins. And the idea of going in and paying a guy that you already have suspicions may not be the toughest guy and may not be a huge fan of the game is a little bit of a concern, right? Like, I don't think that's the guy you want to go give a bag to. So I don't think Tevin Jenkins is an option. I don't think Mekhi Becton is an option. And Bob reiterates what I told you this morning in a different way, that the reports that ownership got in the way of this deal for Will Fries are false. That the reports that there was a 3-year deal on the table and that money was the issue, or years length of contract was an issue, are false. So just keep that in mind. I really trust Bob and Brady's reporting on these things above all else, above mine, above anybody else's. So, for what it's worth. A bummer about Zeitler. I was really hoping that possibly they'd finally bring him in. It is worth knowing that Zeitler's family, Jeff Simmons just sent this to me, that his family lives in Nashville. Again, like, some of these things you don't have control over. Like, maybe you offered him $18 million a year, maybe he'd come to Seattle, but he probably wanted to play his last year closer to home. So that's that. I think now, if you're talking about free agent guard options, I'll bring back up what I had before. So let me share this screen. Sure. Share that. Share this. Zoom in. And let me put this up on screen for you guys. All right. So this is where things really stand. I would say, based on what we know, so Zeitler is now out. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. That is not what I wanted to do either. Let's refresh. And let's make Zeitler red. Okay, so Zeitler's out. I think these guys are both out. So we're going to make those a little bit lighter red, but I think that they're both out as well. So that means that you're talking about these guys. All right. You're talking about Brandon Scherf, who was the worst zone blocking guard in the NFL last year. He's 33 years old and showing a lot of signs of decline, but is still a good pass blocker. You're talking about, whoops, that's not what I meant to do. Um, Talking about Shaq Mason, who will be released by the Texans and was replaced by Laken Tomlinson. He's 32 years old. Also, not a great zone blocker last year, but has been a great zone blocker in the past. Dalton Risner, who's 29, played okay for the Vikings last year. He's familiar with Sam Darnold, at least. There'd be some chemistry there. So maybe that makes some sense. Will Hernandez, who is 29, coming off a serious injury, really gritty dude. If he's healthy, that would be my choice. Another name that I'd probably add in there is Nick Herbig, guy I pointed out early on, younger, has not played a lot of snaps, but is reasonably athletic. So those are probably the names we're talking about. I have Cesar Ruiz on here, who was a guard for the Saints last year that is currently under contract. They could potentially try to trade for him, but I'm just not sure that's realistic. And he's not exactly like some kind of massive upgrade, although he was a pretty good run blocker for them last year in zone. So those are the guys that I think are going to be in the conversation, and it's going to be disappointing. It's going to be disappointing. What I will say, sorry, I'm seeing some like people going at each other in chat or calling out admins or something. I'll just say this for folks that are new. Rules are really simple in my chats. Football only. I don't want no talking about politics or religion or anything else. Football only. You be kind to each other and my guests and me, preferably, but I care least about that. But like, be kind to everybody. And people are good to you. Try to be good to them. Try to pay things forward. So if you get something, try to give something. Those are my 3 rules. So I don't know, because I haven't been able to follow along with everything in chat and do the show, but my admins are pretty nice, and I pick them intentionally. So if you're squabbling with them, I would check yourself a little bit. Make sure that you're being kind. If you don't like something, that's totally fine. You can be negative. Are absolutely allowed to be negative in the chat. Repeating yourself a bunch, not so much fun. Okay? So interesting. Some more news coming out. This from Bob Condata. The Seahawks did not offer qualifying tenders to Cody White, wide receiver, Josh Ross, the linebacker, Joshua Onajagu, who's like an edge, and Jalen Darden, who was brought in as a punt returner, kick returner last year. So that's not super surprising. The Cody White one's a little surprising. Like, so that now those guys, what that means is those guys are all unrestricted free agents. They can go sign with any team they want. I would hope they bring back Cody White. I don't know. Maybe he's not a fit for what they're doing here, but I like Cody White as a receiver, and I think he can make steps forward. Jalen Darden, I was not particularly enamored with as a punt returner. At least he didn't fumble, which was nice. That was a step up from what the Seahawks dealt with initially. Joshua Onajagu, I liked him. I thought he actually showed some ability, especially special teams and as edge rusher. I'm not sure if they'll bring him back. And then Josh Ross was a guy that Mike McDonald brought over that he had experience with, I think, from Baltimore and other places. We'll see. He might be back as well. But those guys are now unrestricted free agents. They can sign with any team. All right. Sorry, I'm checking a couple of things. Sorry. People are texting me all sorts of stuff. So I am trying to make sure I'm not missing any key things, but I think they're just joking around about things. So let's talk for a second just about like the balance of free agency so far for the Seahawks and what's going on. You've got Geno Smith has been traded for a third round pick. DK Metcalf has been traded for a second round pick. You signed Sam Darnold to a deal that essentially is about $27.5 million a year when you look at the guarantees. The other piece of this is Will Fries. You swung and you missed. You swung and you missed on Will Fries. Biggest failure of the offseason so far, without question. You bring back Ernest Jones on a great deal. You bring back Jaron Reed on a great deal. You add Marquez Valdes-Scantling on a really reasonable deal. And I'm going to show you some more film in a second about why I think that was a pretty sneaky addition. I don't think it's like, oh my God, they've added the best player ever, but I think he's a pretty sneaky addition. And now you've added Demarcus Lawrence. So on balance, it's a pretty good hit rate. Now you got to kind of nail it. You got to nail it. But I feel like John Schneider and the Seahawks have been. I think there's a better offseason. I think we're going to look back and feel like they made some pretty good decisions in this offseason, in this free agency group, because there's not a lot else. Like, I got into this with some of my co-hosts as well. Like, what was their plan B from Will Fries? And I'm like, well, I think Will Fries was kind of in a tier of his own, and they went after him and apparently wanted to make sure that they had some assurances about his physical health, and he didn't want to wait. You could argue maybe they should have just taken that chance. You know, that's a lot of money to not get any physical reassurances about. So that's the one. You know, I would have loved them to sign Kevin Zeitler. I've always wanted them to sign Kevin Zeitler, but he has family in Nashville, apparently, if what Jeff said is true. And he's probably playing the last year of his career, and he's going to play close to home. Like, you can't move Seattle. You can't move Seattle. So again, there's only so many things you can do. And I think of the things that the Seahawks can do, I think they've done a pretty decent job. The only other one that I would kind of poke at, the couple things I would poke at, I feel like nose tackle is a position that I would have been interested in them. You know, I don't know if I would have gone for Poona Ford at this price that the Rams paid, but that would have been nice. I really like Bobby Brown, who formerly from the Rams. I think at his price, that would have been nice. So they've kind of like let the nose tackle market get away with Roy Lopez. Like, I think nose tackle was a position they could have gotten someone pretty good, and they have not. The other is, I said this morning, the Joe Thuney trade, like a 2026 fourth round pick for Joe Thuney. Come on. Like, that's the one that's going to really kill me. The Fries one, I think, will kill everybody else. The Thuney one is where I'm like, what are we talking about? Like, how could you not beat that? And how could you not want him here? I don't get that. So, you know, I don't think it's the F that some people want to make it out to be. I don't think it's an A or an A plus, but I think it's a pretty solid. I think it's a pretty solid offseason so far in terms of the decisions they had to make and the options they have in that. They still have 5 picks in the top 92. So I don't think it's as I'm seeing people like our biggest troll says it's clearly an F. I don't see how it's an F. The person who says it's clearly an F also said you can't sign DK Metcalf, and they didn't. I think people are mostly saying CCC. That's fine, but I think I'd probably be a little bit above a C. I'd probably be like a C plus B minus so far, but I think it's pretty solid. I think the contracts that they've signed are fantastic. So I want to get back to what I was doing before. I want to show you more of Marquez Valdes-Scantling and why I think this was a sneaky good signing. All right. So we're going to look at some more of his time with the Saints. All right. So I'll show this play one more time for people that did not see it initially. But a 71-yard touchdown and a 67-yard play if you want to see those. Next one I want to show, this is a 39-yard play. All right, so we're going to play this again. Take a little look. Let me make it a little bit bigger for you guys. There, that's a little bit bigger. All right. So, again, you get motion with Klint Kubiak's offense. And this was a pretty crazy play by Derek Carr, I got to say. So MVS is up here, and he's going to run a little slant here, okay, or a little post. And once again, you get play action, you get some odd motion, but watch Derek Carr stand in the pocket for this one, all right? He gets some crazy pressure. So there's MVS up here. He's going to go into this space, and you've got the running back out in the flat as a receiver. And watch Derek Carr step up into this pocket and just get absolutely planted here. There's MVS. Look at this nice little, like, he is putting on a second move on this safety. He is faking that he's going to go outside, but he's actually going to break inside. All right, so watch here. Watch here for a second as Carr is about to get smashed. Boom. Absolute laser to MVS on this one. And he's not just a deep ball merchant. Like, he's not looking at all at these two defenders that are waiting there. He's gonna get hit, and he's got his arms outstretched, makes the catch, could have taken a big hit, but doesn't. So I love that. There's some of these plays I'm going to show you that are him going over the middle. That's a 39-yard play. This is a shorter play, all right? This is one of his 4 touchdowns he had in 8 starts. I believe this is him, and I think he is going to drag across the formation. A couple things to note here was, people are saying that was Spencer Rattler. Okay, maybe it was. Some of these are they switch up. So this one is definitely Derek Carr, but that was a pretty impressive play by Rattler. So so one of the other things I want to call out here is Gary Kubiak. I'm going to say that too many times. Klint Kubiak, red zone offense. Okay, Klint Kubiak, red zone offense, and we know how much the Seahawks struggled in the red zone last year. So watch how easy this is. Watch how easy this is. And this is not a speed merchant play. So first you get motion during the snap. So the defense is going to have to honor that. Again, you've got a situation where it's a 12 formation. So you got 2 tight ends, 2 receivers, 1 back. All right. Now, Valdes-Scantling here, nice little move to get off the press, which there wasn't much of a press there from the linebacker. Just a simple crossing route. Doesn't have to be crazy. That's a nice, easy play. Nice touchdown. That's one of his 4 touchdowns that he had. And part of what's going on here is this guy gets drawn down, which makes this throwing lane open for Derek Carr. All right. So that's another one. I want to show you a play that's not again, not all of his plays are deep balls. And this is a great example of Klint Kubiak and his boot game, and the misdirection that he does. So I think this is Taysom Hill in the background, by the way, in the backfield. And again, you've got a 12 situation, 2 tight ends, and then you got receivers in a pretty tight formation. And let's watch this once together. Before we even get into this, watch the line blocks. Watch some of the linemen this way, some of the linemen this way. Look at that. So you've got what looks like this could easily be a pin and pull kind of play, or something along those lines. And it looks like it's going to be a run play. Everything about this looks like a run play. Maybe it's even an RPO, but I don't think it is. I think this is an intentional play action bootleg pass. And so at this point, everyone on defense, look at everyone on defense. They're buying this, right? And Taysom Hill looks like he's going to take it, but there's no ball in Derek Carr's hands. So really nice play fake by him. And then watch it here. Nice, easy pass to Marquez Valdes-Scantling for 16 yards. I love this, man. Like, I want to see this in Seattle now. Misdirection, boot, easy throw. You can have the shittiest offensive line in the world. If you can just get people convinced that you're doing one thing and then change the direction and change the style of play from a run to a pass, it's not complicated, but it's certainly something we have not seen enough of in Seattle. So this is another play with MVS. Again, you get pre-snap motion. Again, it's 12 personnel, I believe, 2 tight ends, 1 running back. So this is another example of how he will go over the middle. And I think this is Spencer Rattler who's thrown to him in this one. So yeah, this was definitely the same game as before where he took that big hit. But you're going to see him come across the middle. Sorry, let me go back, show you guys where to pay attention to. So this is Marquez Valdes-Scantling. You're going to see him go here and then cut into the middle. All right. And a lot of guys that are fast speed guys, they're not willing. That was wrong. I told you the wrong thing. Gosh darn it. Sorry, guys. He was in the slot here. He's in the slot. So he's going to cut outside, come back in. A lot of guys that are speed players will not come over the middle and take hits. So again, a nice look at Kubiak's system. No play action on this one. Pretty clear throw, for the rookie quarterback, Spencer Rattler, on this one. And nicely cleared out in the route combination. All right. Last one I'm going to show here is a nice little touchdown against the Rams. Of course, you're going to love seeing that. And this is just him, again, working from the slot in this case. So take a look at the formation again. Again, you're getting kind of this one is 11. This looks like a 3 receiver set. So one tight end, 1 back. And here is number 10, Marquez Valdes-Scantling. And he's just going to beat the corner to the corner. Nice play there. Nice ball tracking. So, I mean, I saw a lot in the plays from him. I don't think this guy is like the next great, huge player, but I think that he, like, going back to some of these big plays, you're talking about somebody who can stretch the field, and he did it last year. He looks like he's still got his speed, 4.37. Great deep ball here. Great play from him. He is willing to make catch. I mean, he makes a lot of contested catches. So I have not looked at what his contested catch rate is. I can go look at that in a little bit. But yes, that was Rattler. So thank you guys for saying that. I think they got a pretty nice addition. A pretty nice addition who had 4 touchdowns and 8 starts for Klint Kubiak. He'd only had his career high was 6 touchdowns in 16 games. So I think this guy has a lot to offer for not a lot of money. And it's exactly the kind of player they should be adding. He's not going to have to learn the system. He already knows the system. And you've got a guy in JSN who's going to attract most of the attention. He can be the Chris Olave in this system. And Marquez Valdes-Scantling can be the Rashid Shaheed. And it doesn't have to be a long-term thing. It can be a this-year thing. So I think this was a sneaky good signing by the Seahawks, better than I gave it credit for initially. And I think people are going to enjoy watching him play in this offense. And I think this offense is really headed towards being one that is really run-oriented. Now they're going to need some more offensive linemen for that to be a effective thing, but I think it's going to be very run-centric, and I think it's going to be a lot of boots and a lot of play action, and I think it's going to be a gritty offense. I don't think it's going to be as flashy as some of the others, but I think it's going to be a pretty decent offense. So, yeah, I just wanted to share a little bit about this. I'm going to be back on later tonight. 7 o'clock, we'll be doing Real Hawk Talk with Evan Hill and Dana O'Gorman. So we'll see what goes on between now and then. I'm going to officially change my searches to Will Hernandez as one. And it would at least be fun if Will Hernandez got signed, because Jeff Simmons and I have liked Will Hernandez since he was in the draft and wanted him to be the Seahawks pick. So it's been a while. It would be fun if that actually ended up coming to fruition. All right, let me just get this up there and we'll start watching it. We'll start watching it and see if anything of note comes up on Mr. Hernandez as the next name to watch. All right. So in summary, Demarcus Lawrence is a Seahawk. 3-year deal, $42 million, $18 million guaranteed. Probably works out to about a 2-year, $18 million contract, somewhere around there. Maybe 2 years, $20 million, depending on how he plays and how much he plays. This is a guy that was one of only 3 edge defenders in the entire NFL in 2023, the last time he played a full year, to have a run defense grade over 90, which is all pro. The other guys to do it, you're talking about Max Crosby, you're talking about, these guys that are the best of the best. So Demarcus Lawrence, a Seahawk, reunited with Aden Dirty, paired with Uchenna Nwosu, Boye Mafe, Derek Hall, Leonard Williams, Byron Murphy, Jaron Reed. It's a pretty good group they've got there. The other news, they signed Marquez Valdes-Scantling. Let me pull up make sure I got the right contract for him. He signs a 1-year deal worth up to $5.5 million, which is nothing. And, if he doesn't meet incentives, probably won't even be $5.5 million. I just showed you a bunch of film about why I think he adds a lot. And then the other piece here is that Kevin Zeitler is signed, and report from Bob Condata that I trust is that Mekhi Becton and Tevin Jenkins are not targets for the Seahawks and will not be targets. So we're going to be looking at really bargain basement guys again. And John Schneider's going to get criticized for it, and he probably should be criticized for it, not necessarily because of this year, but because of the last decade of always going that direction. So that's where things stand. We'll keep an eye on things, and I will see you all tonight, 7 o'clock. Dana O'Gorman and Jeff Simmons Dana O'Gorman and Evan Hill will be on with me tonight. Hopefully you guys will appreciate that. I do have some super chats. Let me get to those before I leave. Tiza says, NASCAR package is scary looking with Demarcus Lawrence. I agree. I think that could be great. Dr. Cluck 68 says, so with the guards flying off the board and looking like we might have some cheaper options at guard, what do you think they're going to do with the large amount of cap space remaining? Well, don't know. I don't think there's a lot of free agents worth going after with that money. We talked this morning about the fact that maybe they could sign some of their 2022 draft class to front-loaded contracts to move some of the cap hit this year and save in future years. Don't know. That's not very common, but maybe. They could just roll it over. They could save it for in-season moves if they decide to do that. Yeah. There's possibly that there's trades that they could be looking at. I'm not sure who that would be for, but those are some of the possibilities. Luis De Leon says, I think Will Hernandez would be a good pickup. I agree, Luis. Thanks for the super chat. Tizza says, thoughts on Hawks picking Tony Horton. I like Tony Horton. Colorado State, I think is a good receiver for them to be looking at, and I think has some of the traits that I'd want. I want them to get someone fast. Marquez Valdes-Scantling, I just showed you, I think he's still got his 4.37 speed, but you do want to be looking a little bit longer term, and you don't want to trust a guy that's been through 75 teams. Like, I wouldn't trust that this is going to be a long-term thing with him. Next. Dogzilla Monster says, MVS deal was all Jody's choice per sources. Dogzilla is trolling. Don't take him seriously. He's just tongue in cheek in this. So, yes. Good signing there. Anton Gluskanov says, trade Nwosu for a guard. Is that realistic? I don't think it is. Uchenna Nwosu's coming off an injured season and then coming off an injured season before that. I don't think his value is that high, and I don't know that, guard is just such a valuable spot right now. I don't know that there's many teams that be looking to move on from one. It's possible maybe, but I haven't looked enough. I can go back and kind of tear it down, but I'm not sure that there's a guard that a team's going to be willing to give that the Seahawks would want to get, that's a fit for the system. All the things have to be right. And so, I don't think trades are pretty hard. I'm not sure, especially player-for-player trades are pretty hard. Usually players are traded for picks. All right. With that, thank you all for joining for this bonus episode of Hawk Blogger Morning. Hopefully you enjoyed it. I will be back on with you tonight for Real Hawk Talk. See you then. Until then, make sure you give the show a like, click subscribe, and I will see you then.